Today, I had a chance to update a childhood toy. And it's kind of wild to me, really. So I've talked about G.I. Joe, and I've talked about G.I. Joe Classified and things of that nature. And when I've talked about G.I. Joe, I've talked about the fact that when I was young, I didn't watch any G.I. Joe. I didn't read any G.I. Joe. But every now and then, I would go to the store, and I would find G.I. Joes. And I would buy one. And I would create the stories on the spot. Then I'd take them home, and I'd go across, I'd go to my neighbors and whatnot, and we'd play Joes. We called it playing guys back then. Today, on Hasbro Pulse, they released one of the only Joes I still have. My actual childhood, never lost it, G.I. Joe. Dice. There he is. Like, this is him. He's wobbly. Like, he kind of puts his legs up. He's that little part there is broke off, but otherwise his band and everything is still solid. He still has his action thing, even though his arms can no longer do it. He can kind of put his arms up and they keep. His head is just wobbly all over the place. He's an old toy. He's a super old toy. That's him. I remember whenever I needed a ninja character, he was my go-to. It wasn't actually like Snake Eyes or whatever, because I didn't have that mentality because I wasn't watching G.I. Joe and I wasn't reading G.I. Joe. So while Snake Eyes was cool, I thought he was the coolest ninja. So anytime we played and I picked him and I created a storyline or whatever, it was with him. It was with Dice. I still, even today, don't know anything about the character. Nothing. Like, literally, I'm completely unaware of what is going on with Dice. But today, they released a Dice, Slice and Dice pack. And I think I had Slice. I know I had Dice. He's right here. It was kind of wild buying it. And it kind of brought back one of those moments that I've had a couple of times in toys. And I'm sure it's one of those things that a lot of people are experiencing with these figures right here. See, it's one thing to buy some Fantastic Four figures. I mean, Marvel figures, how do I put this? They don't have the same effect. And maybe that's because I don't buy specific Marvel figures that would create this said effect. Like, when you buy a new Spider-Man, it doesn't take me back to that moment in the 90s when I had an animated Spider-Man from the cartoon toy line. Like, my mind, I remember those times and I remember those figures and I like them very much, but like, my mind doesn't go back and make me feel like I rebought a toy from my childhood. It doesn't happen. When I buy these, it doesn't make me feel like that either, because I literally am just buying more Playmates, the same ones I had when I was a kid. But when I bought the Ultimate Ninja Turtles, that was a moment. That was like an upgrade to my childhood, like modernizing my childhood. And it doesn't happen with many figures when I think about it. I'm positive that people that owned He-Man in the original 80s, that's probably why this toy line hits them the way they do, the way it does, is because they're buying something that feels like a legit update. Like, just new enough, but just existing in the past enough that they're really just buying the same thing they already had, but with an experience today, with modernization. It's really hard for me to explain what I'm going on about here. It really is. Like, it was neat to buy the Playmates Ninja Turtles when they released. It really was. But all it felt like was putting them back on my shelf. But something about buying the Ultimate Turtles, that felt like an upgrade to my childhood. Something, and G.I. Joe's is another thing that does that. I remember I had Jungle Recondo. So when I buy him again, there's something about having him again. But modernized, that is just a completely different thing. And it doesn't happen for many other figures that I can think of. Like when I buy a Superman, I don't feel like necessarily I've rebought and updated the original Superman that I had all those years ago. It doesn't hit like that. But today, they released Slice and Dice. And I was like, no way. Awesome. And I put it in. Click. I ordered it. And as I ordered it, I started thinking about this guy. I started thinking about that I knew he was sitting in the toy bin somewhere. And I was like, I still have him. He's one of the only toys from my childhood that I still have. Like, I remember I'd always have him standing there holding his arms crossed and whatnot because he was cool, because Vegeta characters that stood in the corner and brooded and whatnot and were lone wolves were cool. I don't think they are as much as I used to. I'm not really into that the way that I used to be. But, like, it's wild. It really is. To, like, update something that you've held on to for that long. Like, especially something from, like, your main childhood. Like, it really kind of puts into perspective why so many people buy this and, like, feel the way they do about it. And it got me thinking, there's not a lot of toy lines that do that. Like, I have two right now, right back there. I have two Sabretooth. But I never look at them and think about the Sabretooth that, like, I had years back. Like, it just doesn't hit that way. There's something interesting about updating something that you had in your childhood when it hits a certain way. And I think it's very hard to replicate. Almost impossible, I'd say. Because it has to hit an exact area. It has to be like 80% what you remember and 20% new. And that feels like a nearly impossible balance to obtain, which is the reason we don't think about them like that. You buy that Wolverine, the 97 Wolverine, you don't immediately think about the old figure that you had years ago with the spring claws. Like, he doesn't jump to mind and make me feel like, oh man, this is just like when I was a kid, but it's like modern and new. If it's too new or too removed, even if it's basically perfect and the best Wolverine you ever got, it won't feel like that Wolverine. But if it's also just a re-release of that Wolverine, it doesn't necessarily feel like anything other than putting that back on your shelf. It's a really strange balance that they have to hit to make this happen. And I realized today that while I don't experience this through G.I. Joe very often because I did not have the history with it, G.I. Joe is one of those toy lines that can create that moment. You can buy a Snake Eyes and you can compare it to this. You can buy a Cobra Commander and you can compare it to your Cobra. Like, it's one of the only toy lines I can think of that modernizes your childhood, and it works with almost every single one. I mean, classified is an argument. I'm talking about the retro card series, still classified, but you get what I'm talking about. It kind of blows me away. You want the truth of it? Thumbs up to their design team, man, because I know this is a very hard balance to hit. It just got me thinking. I wanted to come in and talk about it. And I also was curious, do you know any toy lines like this? Any lines that when you pick them up, it really does kind of harken back to what you had, but modernize it in a way that doesn't feel like you're buying something old, but feels like you literally are buying something new and up to date and fresh and exactly what you always wanted back then? Because I'm telling you, that does not happen with many lines. It's an incredibly, incredibly hard balance to hit. Let me know.
I have spoken. Take what you will from it.